Hey, hey, hey. What's up? How y'all doing today? I hope all is well. It's your girl, Trishia, the realist, for Modest Monday. All right, so today we're going to talk about something that's really touchy. A lot of people, you might be mad at me after this one, but just drop it in the inbox. Let me know how you feeling, because I believe it needs to be talked about, growing up as a kid, I wasn't sheltered. I wasn't loved on. I wasn't, and I wouldn't advise anybody to treat their kid like that because it ain't right. But I didn't grow up with fear. I didn't have fear. So I went outside and played. I went outside and lived, I hitchhiked all the way to New York. Like, I did not grow up with fear. And with my kids, I try to implement that too. I lost it with my, you have your first kid, you kind of, finding out stuff, and every time he hurt himself, I'm like, oh, let me kiss that, whatever the case might be. And he also was there during the time when I was getting locked up and stuff like that, so they kind of fear the law. It's a good fear to have, that way they're not in trouble and doing all that other stuff. But like, we gotta stop teaching our kids fear. We have to. Like, these days, people are afraid to get on planes. People are afraid to live. So you can't be afraid to live. Like, you have to have an understanding and know that certain situation causes certain things. You get drunk, you go to a party, whatever the case might be, you have an opportunity to black out. Talk about how fear is taught. It is a learned behavior, and we are doing it more and more to the point where it's becoming transmitted from one person to the next, from one adult to their children, from their children to their children. Fear is definitely being taught. It was taught in the slavery times. You were beat, like the fear was beat into you. And today, even today, like, we're still teaching about fear instead of teaching an understanding about it, and I always talk about getting an understanding on something. And today I want to talk about getting the understanding of fear. So, like, when it comes to my kids and fear, I have taught them an understanding of what will happen if something happens, but not to fear it. Not to fear it. Like, okay, so Clarence and his bike riding, right? So when he first learned how to ride a bike, he had fell and he hurt himself, and I mean, it was all bad, all types of bad. And so then after that, he didn't want to ride a bike anymore. He was just like, he gave up, he jumped up, was like, I don't want to do this. And I was like, no, you can't fear this. You have to learn to fall. When you learn how to fall, you master it. You master that fear inside of you. So one day we're riding and he sees a car coming. So he tries to veer off and go to hit the curb. And he hits the curb. And I mean, I see this kid just boom, 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 tumble straight over the curb. And I'm like, man, that's deep, right? But he jumps up and he says, I did it. I did it. And from that day forward, he knew how to ride a bike. He's not afraid of, he doesn't even use a slide for an actual slide. He wants to climb up on top and jump off. And you know what I mean? Like, that fear does not resonate in him because I did not teach him that fear. And we have to go through life understanding, like, we have to understand what fear is, understand what things are, like, understand that, okay, if we don't wear our seatbelt, that we could get in a car accident. But doesn't mean you have to fear getting in the car. Do you understand that point? We can fear the COVID. We can fear that, and it's so easy to fear that because that's trained. Fear is definitely taught. And the thing about it, like, as kids are kids, like, you sit there and I mean, they fall and then you kiss their boo-boos and stuff like that, and they realize, like, oh wait, so if this happens and I give this reaction, then this is what they give me. So they feel as if you just bought their pain, right? So, I have no way in telling you to be anything like me, but when it came to my kids, I could not teach them in that manner because I lacked that. I lacked someone coming to me telling me, oh, is everything okay? Or, you know, let me kiss that for you, or let me help you up, or anything like that. So I lack that. So I don't push it that far, and I don't ignore their pain. Instead, I understand it, and I let them know I understand it. So I tell them, like, you'll be okay. You know, when Clarence fell and he scratched his whole chin and just jumps back up, like, but because I didn't teach him that fear, and at a young age, fear is really taught. Fear is really taught. And in order for us not to push that our own fears onto our children, our own fears and our own self-conscious onto our children, we have to know what that boundary is. We have to have boundaries within ourselves to be able to teach them a way that we weren't able to learn, you know? So another fear, like, you know, people fear people leaving them. People fear of other people's success. You know, there are so many different people are afraid of ants and snakes and bites, and people are afraid of so much stuff. But what they don't truly understand is that fear will have you scared. That fear will have you not living your best life. You're not going to go camping. Why? Because you're afraid to get bit. Instead of saying, you know what, I'm going to go camping. If I got bit, I got a first aid kit. Don't teach fear. Don't do that. Don't do that. I would not advise that. You know what I mean? It has to stop somewhere. You know, some parents, they don't want to hear what they're doing is wrong. You know what I mean? They want to kiss those boo-boos, and they want to show that love, and they want to. We need strong children. Because these next generations to come up, they have to be strong to deal with what is going to happen. Understand what fear is. Because there's going to be a point where you're not there. And because you pass on this generational curse of fear, they will live in fear. You cannot allow your child to live in fear. You cannot allow them to go day to day. I remember when the probation officer came and knocked at my door. You know, I'm like peeped through I didn't even make it like nonchalant. I peeped through the window, moved the blinds, everything, and took off running. Because of fear. Fear of going back to jail. Instead of realizing and understanding what the consequences are of doing what I was doing. And that's exactly what I mean by understanding. Like, you have to understand that if you want to walk down a dark path, there are going to be consequences. You're blindsided. You know that there's a God, but how well do you really know there's a God? He accepts us for who we are, and he allows us to come back to him. Now, I'm not saying go walk down that dark path. No, I will not say that. Don't do that. But don't live in fear either. That's having an understanding of fear. But to be like, if you go out in that street, you're going to get hit. That's raising fear. That's implementing your fear into your child for whatever reason. You touch that dog and the dog's going to bite you, and you know, you're going to bleed to death. That's fear. That's fear. We cannot teach our kids to live in fear. We got to be better than that. We got to do better than that. Like, oh. Yes, can you move, please?
Hello, mine is my day today. I'm Kyondre Carter. How are your guys' day today? Okay, let's get right to the story. That's the end. Goodbye.